Welcome back. This is episode 2 of our series. We're going to talk about the East India Company and its origins and its growing influence in the Indian subcontinent during the 1600s. And in 1700, where Mughal power was. The Mughal Empire was the richest nation state on the planet throughout the late 1600s and into 1700, and had the highest GDP in the world, and also was closer to industrialization than Western Europe. In fact, the province of Bengal was the richest place on earth. And in fact, there were signs of proto-industrialization, is how economists describe it now, looking back, that there was a manufacturing base in the Mughal Empire, and they were on the cusp of perhaps an industrial revolution in India. And also the levels of urbanization, city life was much more vibrant in the Indian subcontinent under Mughal rulers than it was in Europe at this time, with the exception of some cities, Florence, London, Paris. Those are all great cities. Vienna in this period, Constantinople obviously in the Ottoman Empire. So the British East, actually at that point, the English East India Company, remember we don't have a unity between England and Scotland until 1707, so we're talking about the English now. And we use the terms interchangeably, but let's keep that in mind. We're talking about the English at this point. The English East India Company is formed in 1598. They are a company that is looking at the spice trade in the East Indies and looking to export goods from India to England. And they are a private company, but as we will talk about throughout this series, they became effectively a pseudo-governmental entity, and in fact, many members of parliament were prominent shareholders in the East India Company. So in 1612, they have their first great victory on the Indian subcontinent. They defeat the Portuguese. They found Surat in Gujarat, where the Portuguese had been ascendant throughout the 1500s. In fact, there had been battles between the Portuguese and the Mughals in the 1500s, battles between the Portuguese and the Ottoman Turks in the 1500s on the Gujarat coast. And the Portuguese were the dominant European power in India at the time. You have the Dutch in South India as well, basically the coast of what is now Kerala, from about Calicut southward, a lot of Dutch areas. But at the time, the Portuguese are more ascendant in India. Sir Thomas Roe is the first British ambassador to the court of the Mughal Emperor Jahangir. Jahangir is a Renaissance man, the emperor. He is not a good politician. He is not a good military leader. He is a man of the arts. He is a man of music. He and Sir Thomas Roe strike up a camaraderie. They both speak Turkish. They're both interested in literature. And the British, or the English, excuse me, at this point, get some exclusive trading rights within the Mughal domains because of this relationship between the emperor and the ambassador. And they communicated with each other in Turkish, which is very interesting. They both knew Turkish. This is Jahangir. Really interesting guy if you read about him. A Renaissance man, a man of literature, a man of music, but an ineffective emperor, and he effectively opened the door for the British to come in to the empire and into the Indian subcontinent. So as the 17th century evolves, the Mughal Empire continues its ascendancy. Shah Jahan is the next emperor, his son, and Shah Jahan builds the Taj Mahal, among other things, builds a new capital city, Shah Jahanabad, so moves the capital from Agra to Shah Jahanabad. At this point, the English are continuing to grow in influence. They create a colony in Bengal on the coast, Fort William, now Kolkata, becomes Calcutta eventually. Fort St. George on the coast, Carnatic coast, South India, becomes Madras. It's now called Chennai. And in 1661, they acquire Bombay, now Mumbai, the most grand of Indian cities, one of the great cities in the world, even today. They acquire Bombay by virtue of a marriage with a member of the Portuguese royal family. It was a Portuguese colony. The English at this point are ascendant, and they're feeling their oats. Aurangzeb has become the emperor of the Mughal Empire, and I don't want to get into the legacy of Aurangzeb. It is a very controversial topic in modern India and in modern Pakistan. In fact, this is a great little biography about Aurangzeb from Audrey Trishke, who is a professor at Rutgers and is very prominent on Twitter, and she's done a wonderful job. The man in the myth, she calls it, and that's very much true. In Pakistan, he's seen as a hero, as sort of a jihadist who fought the Hindus, a Muslim jihadist. That is an exaggeration. In India now, under BJP rule, Aurangzeb is seen as a bit of a persecutor of Hindus, a persecutor of Christians, a persecutor of Sikhs. That is not entirely true either. The truth is somewhere in the middle. I think he was a persecutor of Sikhs, by the way. But there is a lot of evidence that he was not as much of a persecutor or as oppressive towards Hindus as the BJP would make it out to be. But that is something you can read about in her book and in other sources. Anyway, Aurangzeb is governing the empire from Shah Jahanabad. And in 1679, he embarks on campaigns in the Deccan to conquer the Deccan Plateau and much of South India, Central and South India. He is successful in these campaigns, although it takes a major toll on the empire. And again, the empire is the richest state on the planet at this point. There's more manufacturing going on, there's stronger urban life, there's a better system of roads and taxations in India, or in the Indian subcontinent, than anywhere else on the planet. But the British, or the English, are now thinking this is their opportunity. Aurangzeb has spread the Mughal Empire too thin, and as history will prove, they were in fact correct in their judgment. And the Mughal Empire would have a swift fall after about 1707, but that's a topic for the next lecture. So what do the British do? Josiah Child, Sir Josiah Child, is the head of the East India Company at this point. And Sir Josiah Child decides in 1686 he is going to go to war with the Mughal Emperor. He is going to try and expand the English domain in the Indian subcontinent. It was a disaster. You don't, with an army of mercantilists and an army of mercenaries, take on the most powerful monarch on the planet, which is what this man was at this point. And the Mughals crushed the British. It's actually one of the worst defeats if you look at English or British military history, outside of some of their defeats in the Middle Ages, and of course the debacle in Singapore in 1941 and 42 in World War II. But it's not something talked about a lot in history because we think about a gradual English and then British conquest of India, which happens in the future. But their initial efforts to expand their domains in India are beat back by the emperor and beat back brutally. This is how big the Mughal Empire was under Aurangzeb. You're talking about all the way from, I guess that would be the modern areas of Central Asia, the old Soviet Central Asia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, through Kashmir, through Afghanistan, through Baluchistan, right here, the Sindh, Hindustan, right? We think this was actually an empire of Hindustan. And the core of Hindustan was always in the empire, down all the way through Gujarat to South India, the Deccan, and of course, Bengal, which was the richest province in the empire and the richest place on the planet at the time. So massive empire. You can see why it's so wealthy. And their GDP at the time was roughly a higher percentage of the global GDP than the US is currently. Think about that for a minute. That's how economically viable and strong the empire of Aurangzeb was. So the British lose, the English lose. This is the humiliation. This is Sir Josiah Child, the head of the English East India Company, bowing in submission to the Mughal emperor at his court after they're defeated in the war in 1690. This is a stark picture. And obviously the tables would be turned in the future, but at this point in 1690, Aurangzeb is supreme, the Mughals are supreme, and this is where the English are. They have been defeated and they have been humiliated. Another challenge comes in 1695. Henry Every, a violent pirate, has seized a number of Mughal ships, the Mughal fleet, the Grand Mughal fleet, which was connected directly to the emperor. The emperor now threatens the English again. This sets off a scandal that goes all the way to Westminster, and even the Crown and Parliament are desperate to brandish Sir Henry Every an outlaw and make good in compensation to the Mughal Emperor, because they don't want to mess with the Mughals at this point. They have learned Aurangzeb is more powerful than they are. So Sir Henry Every becomes an outlaw, is not allowed to return to Britain, and he dies of a destitute nomad later in life. And he was the great pirate of that era. And the fleet that was ransacked by Henry Every was a number of ships carrying gold, Mughal ships carrying gold in the Red Sea, headed towards Mecca. 1702, Fort St. George, modern-day Chennai, in South India, is raided and sieged by the Mughals. Daud Khan is the leader of this operation on behalf of the emperor. And the British surrender, and they're allowed to keep Fort St. George, but they have to pay a tribute. And so in 1702, as we end this episode, this is what's happening. Fort St. George on the Coromandel coast is sieged by the Mughals. They control the entirety, let's go back to that map, they control the entirety of the subcontinent with the exception of the southern tip, all the way up to Central Asia. Bengal is the richest place on earth. And where are the English? The English are in Surat, they're in Gujarat, small trading posts. Here is Mumbai. You can see that it sticks out, it's not shaded because they're in Mumbai. They are in Fort St. George, which is right here. They are in Fort William, which is right here. Becomes Calcutta. The rest is all red. The Mughals are ascendant. They are the richest empire on earth, and they are, at this point, the all-powerful. And at this point, it appears like if there's going to be industrialization, if there's going to be modernization into the era of the Enlightenment, it's going to come out of India, not out of Britain or France or Western Europe. But things would change pretty dramatically in the very near future in a period known as the Anarchy, as coined by William Dalrymple, the great historian who's recently written a book on the 18th century in India. And we will pick up with that with our next episode. Thank you for watching.